Testing, testing. Anybody type in here yet? This is stupid. Oh, okay, that was fast. Norma's been looking at the other ones, so I just sent her a photo. Okay, now I got 8 people now. This is the orange one, I believe. Hopefully we can get this one. Ugh. Oh, Safari got one too. Okay, so yeah, Norma's been working on the other ones. So there we go. Now they're jumping in here. Susan. We need to build up on this channel and the Brown channel. So tomorrow, when Trump's speech, we'll probably go on this one. I gotta find out what time he's speaking tomorrow. Yep. Not gonna move no more. I'm done. It had 77. I think I got 77 in here on the subs. We normally get about 30 or 40. So I got a couple of interviews from the press secretary, some new ones, and then Bill guy had the interview from the astronauts. Oh, you found on the other orange one, Dragonfly Good. Yeah, there's some got the buttons again. Well, hopefully Carol will be in. Carol, Mary, Greg, all the other ones. Yeah, we'll get going here at the 10-minute mark. Stay on along. Chico be a good boy over there, huh? You. What are you doing? Waiting for the deer, aren't you? Yeah, the deer should be coming. Yeah, the deer comes around 5 o'clock or so. So I don't know why everybody's talking about a third term for Trump, they're saying. I wonder why they're saying that. Yeah, I'm saying that. I'm going to be starting here real quick.
Breaking news, an unconfirmed witness in past decades. The time has come to abandon enmity. Good day. I'm doing this on.
Okay, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to do the 2 clips on the press secretary first. Yeah, my figures. Right. Okay. This is 8 minutes.
On Wednesday, it will be Liberation Day in America, as President Trump has so proudly dubbed it. The cabinet will be here for the event. It'll be our first Rose Garden event of this administration. So you all will be invited to attend and cover this historic moment. The president will be announcing a tariff plan that will roll back the unfair trade practices that have been ripping off our country for decades. He's doing this in the best interest of the American worker. We also had great news this morning on the border. Our Homeland Security team, our national security team, continues to do an incredibly effective job when it comes to deporting foreign terrorists from American soil. 17 Tren de Aragua and MS-13 illegal criminal terrorists were deported from our country back to El Salvador, and they will no longer ever be able to say they can roam free in this country under this president. These were convicted felons, murderers, rapists who are no longer in our country, and I think we should all be very grateful for that. I'll take some questions.
Is there anything these countries can do at this point to stave off these tariffs? And has the president decided on the scale and scope of these tariffs?
Well, I think, first of all, unfortunately, these countries have been ripping off our country for far too long. And they've made, I think, their disdain for the American worker quite clear. If you look at the unfair trade practices that we have, 50% from the European Union on American dairy. You have a 700% tariff from Japan on American rice. You have a 100% tariff from India on American agricultural products. You have nearly a 300% tariff from Canada on American butter and American cheese. This makes it virtually impossible for American products to be imported into these markets. And it has put a lot of Americans out of business and out of work over the past several decades. So it's time for reciprocity. And it's time for a president to take historic change to do what's right for the American people, and that's going to take place on Wednesday.
And what about the scope of them? He said yesterday he would be more generous. What does that mean?
I will let the president make the announcement on Wednesday, but it's certainly going to ensure that there's reciprocity and the American people are treated fairly.
Has the White House determined how many countries are going to see these reciprocal tariffs?
Again, I'll let the president get into the specifics of the announcement, but he has a brilliant team of trade advisors. You have Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lutnick, Jamieson Greer, our U.S. Trade Representative, Peter Navarro, of course, and Kevin Hassett here at the White House, Stephen Miller as well. The Vice President has been deeply involved in these conversations. All of these individuals have presented plans to the president on how to get this done, and it's the president's decision to make, and we will not get ahead of him on the specifics of the announcement.
And has the stock market sell-off caused the White House to rethink any of these plans?
The president has always said that the stock market is a snapshot of a moment in time, and he's doing what's best for Main Street, and Wall Street will work out just fine in this administration, just like they did in their first term.
As you said last week, Carolina, you said there would be an investigation or a review into how Jeffrey Goldberg's number got on that group chat. What's the status of that review? And what is the status of National Security Advisor Mike Waltz?
As the president has made it very clear, Mike Waltz continues to be an important part of his national security team. And this case has been closed here at the White House as far as we are concerned. There have been steps made to ensure that something like that can obviously never happen again. And we're moving forward. And the president and Mike Waltz and his entire national security team have been working together very well. If you look at how much safer the United States of America is because of the leadership of this team.
On the tariffs, are there going to be sector by sector announcements this week at the event you're alluding to? Is it going to be focusing on sectors or more country-based tariffs?
The goal of Wednesday are country-based tariffs, but certainly sectoral tariffs. The president has said he's committed to implementing them, and I'll leave it to him on when he makes that decision and that announcement.
Caroline,
Sure.
Does President Trump still plan to talk to President Putin this week, and if so, when?
I don't have a readout for you on that call, but as always, we'll provide a readout. Usually the president likes to let you guys know first, especially for big calls like that. Steve?
Any exemptions for farmers being considered for these tariffs?
No exemptions at this time.
Caroline. The validation guide that DHS is using to determine who is an enemy alien, a Tren de Aragua member, deportable under the Enemy Aliens Act, it has criteria here that require 8 points to be classified as a TDA member. You can get classified by simply having certain symbols in your tattoos and wearing certain streetwear brands. That alone is enough to get someone classified as TDA and sent to El Salvador.
That's not true, actually, Andrew.
According to this document, it is.
No, according to the Department of Homeland Security and the agents, have you talked to the agents who have been putting their lives on the line to detain these foreign terrorists who have been terrorizing our communities TDA is a vicious gang that has taken the lives of American women. And our agents on the front lines take deporting these people with the utmost seriousness. And there is a litany of criteria that they use to ensure that these individuals qualify as foreign terrorists and to ensure that they qualify for deportation. And the president made it incredibly clear to the American public that there would be a mass deportation campaign of not just foreign terrorists, but also illegal criminal aliens who have been wreaking havoc on American communities. And shame on you and shame on the mainstream media for trying to cover for these individuals who have. This is a vicious gang, Andrew. This is a vicious gang that has taken the lives of American women.
The government filed in court, which says
and you said yourself there are 8 criteria on that document.
They need 8 points.
And you are questioning the credibility of these agents who are putting their life on the line to protect your life and the life of everybody in this group and everybody across the country. And their credibility should be questioned. They finally have a president who is allowing them to do their jobs, and God bless them for doing it.
Caroline, what method would the president use to potentially run for a third term? As he said, there are methods there.
Look, you guys continue to ask the president this question about a third term, and then he answers honestly and candidly with a smile, and then everybody here melts down about his answer. The president talked about this last night on the plane. He said, it's not really something we're thinking about. He has 4 years. There's a lot of work to do. We've done a lot in these nearly first 100 days, and the American people love what this president is doing, particularly when it comes to efforts to secure the border.
How confident is President Trump in that he can get a peace deal done in Ukraine? How confident is President Trump that he can get a peace deal done in Ukraine?
Well, look, the president is working incredibly hard to get a peace deal done between Russia and Ukraine. And he has expressed his displeasure with comments that have been made by leaders of both sides of this conflict. He has expressed what he believes needs to take place in order to see this conflict come to an end. He continues to work very hard on it, and our teams continue to be engaged.
Caroline, can countries that don't have tariffs on the US but may have other forms of non-tariff trade barriers, I'm thinking in my case of Australia, can they expect to be hit on in Wednesday's announcement, or can they expect to be left out and dealt with another time?
Again, I'll let the president make the announcement on Wednesday, but I think any country that has treated the American people unfairly should expect to receive a tariff in return on Wednesday.
Caroline, you talk about the European Union. Is the president expected to impose those tariffs in blocks, or will he distinguish countries within those trading blocks?
Again, I will let the president get into the specifics of the announcement. It's his announcement to make. It's going to be very exciting. We'll see you guys in the Rose Garden. And you will also hear directly from the president if you have any lingering questions, 5:30 this afternoon, or evening rather, although it's really afternoon for us. That's about midday for this president because he works all night. But he'll be signing an executive order. It will be the in-house pool in the Oval Office, and we'll see you all there. Thanks.
Caroline, is the president going to Saudi Arabia?
Thank you, Caroline.
Okay. Well, another good section there. Today's our secretary. She did an interview I've never seen yet.
Sleep do you get? I mean, let's just get right to the bottom line here. I mean, I'm going 4 hours, and I think that's high. I think it's less. What's the over/under? What are you getting tonight? Come on.
Oh man, it's a little bit over actually. It's usually about 5 to 6 hours a night is what I'm doing, which is all we need. As President Trump says, when you love your job and you love your life, you don't need to sleep much. And that's what we're doing. We're just working all the time. So we're up early, we stay late, and we don't sleep much, but we're having a lot of fun here.
That you are. Let's get right into it. The mom, the mom in you, right? There you are. Yeah, everybody talks about White House press secretary. Hey, you're a mom first. Mm-hmm. And trying to juggle both. And I know you've talked about the kind of how families been helping out, which is great. What about just kind of from an emotional standpoint, kind of dealing with, this job, which is 24/7, and mom life, which can be 24/7 as well? How are you kind of dealing with that? I feel like Oprah when I ask this question.
Yeah, it's certainly challenging. There's no doubt about it. I think every working mother understands the demands, and no matter where you are or what you're doing, there is a sense of guilt. You feel like when you're with your baby, you should be focused on your job, and when you're at your job, you want to be with your baby. So there's always that pull, but just being present in the moment and prioritizing time, saying no when you have to say no to take care of your family is something I've had to learn the hard way in a very short amount of time. But I spend every second that I possibly can with my son when I'm home. On weekends and evenings, I try to make it home for bedtime as much as I can throughout the week and savoring those very special moments as well. And I'm very blessed to have a great support system, an incredible husband who's the best father to our little son, and my mother who comes to town quite often, and other help as well that can be there to nurture and to be there when I can.
Let me ask you, let's go down memory lane for a second, okay? You love your parents. Your parents, you know, they're hardworking, blue collar. I mean, it's a blue collar family from a blue collar town.
Yeah.
What did that teach you? How did that shape you as to who you are today?
It definitely taught me the value of hard work. You know, my parents are small business owners. Neither of them went to college, and they worked very hard to earn everything they had to provide for my brothers and me. You know, growing up, my dad was always working from 7 to 7, 7 days a week. Being a business owner, you don't have days off. And so I think that value of hard work and determination and drive was instilled in me at a very young age just by watching my parents work so hard to earn a living. And it carried with me through college and then, of course, now in my career as well.
Your Catholic education, you've talked about this before, about how it shaped who you are today. Tell us about that. How so? Because the Catholic education was very important. Your Catholicism growing up, God, church, very important to you.
Yes, my faith is incredibly important to me. I would argue now more than ever, being in a role that is very demanding and at times controversial, and there's a lot of public pressure and discussion online about who you are and your family. And, you know, it could be difficult for someone who doesn't have faith, but with faith, all things are possible. And my Catholic education was a pivotal part of my upbringing. It definitely teaches discipline, is something you learn in Catholic schools. And then I obviously went to a Catholic college as well, St. Anselm in New Hampshire, which not only drove my faith further, but also introduced me to the world of politics and news.
Yeah. How did it drive your faith further, you think, at St. Anselm? You had challenges there, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. And just being in a community that embraces faith and talks about it openly and opens your eyes to it. And also being around fellow students and peers who, you know, aren't afraid to go to church on Sunday and talk about their faith openly is something that I think is helpful to anyone in their own faith journey.
Well, let's talk about St. Anselm for a second. All right, I was going through box scores of the college softball St. Anselm team. I was literally seeing, I saw you got a couple of home runs.
They weren't very good.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I mean, you were in a lot of those games and you were hitting, well, you had some home runs and the whole thing. I mean, you went there on a scholarship. Now you're in the rough and tumble world of politics. Talk about that.
Yeah.
Sports and politics. You could probably learn a lot of life lessons about politics from sports. Tell me a little bit about how that serves you maybe today.
100%. The game of softball and sports prepared me for the game of politics, no doubt about it. I was a competitive athlete growing up, not just softball. I played field hockey and played many different sports throughout my childhood, but did go to St. Anselm on a softball scholarship. And again, discipline, hard work, teamwork, and also competing against yourself to be the best that you can in athletics, I think has prepared me, especially for this job now. You know, I can have a good briefing, but the next day I can go on television. I have to perform again, right? So every day is a new game in this job. And I think, you know, being an athlete my whole life probably prepared me for this.
Yeah, let's talk about politics for a second. Your communication colleague, Taylor Budowich, said this about you. He says, Caroline, he was being very complimentary. He said, Caroline has an iron stomach for Trump politics. And I was like, I've got to ask her. So what does that mean exactly? An iron stomach for Trump politics?
Yeah, that's very kind of Taylor to say. He's our deputy chief of staff and he's doing a phenomenal job. We have an amazing team here at the White House and we're all having a lot of fun together working. We're with each other all day long. So it's very good that we have a great team.
Yeah, you better like each other.
Yeah. As for the iron stomach comment, I mean, I think it's a tough business, politics, and you can't get knocked down by what people say online or, you know, the negativity. You just have to know that you're doing your job and doing it at the best of your ability and speaking the truth. And that's what I try to do every day.
Yeah, speaking about that criticism, the press briefings, the critics are, always be out for anyone really behind that podium.
Yes.
But they obviously want to take shots at you. And yet you guys are praying before those prayer briefings. That's my those prayer briefings, those press briefings.
They are prayer briefings.
Yeah, they are. Well, tell me about the prayer briefing before the press briefing. Take us inside. Give us some color as to why you wanted to do that and what that's like right before the door opens, if you will.
Sure. Well, before briefings, it's a little bit chaotic and overwhelming because there's so much news to consume. And so all morning long, my team and I are prepping. And, I feel like sometimes an internal investigative reporter going around to all the policy experts and whomever in the building, including the president himself, to get his take on the news of the day before we go out. So I think that team prayer before is just a moment to be silent and still and ask God for confidence and the ability to articulate my words, knowledge, prayer, protection. And it is a nice moment to reset. It's the last thing I do before I go out there. And then it just gives me the confidence to do a briefing.
It's warfare out there. In Christian terms, people will call what's happening in our country today spiritual warfare. Do you see it in those terms, kind of good versus evil out there, and that context? How do you see that?
I certainly believe in spiritual warfare. And I think I saw it firsthand, especially throughout the campaign trail with President Trump. And I think there certainly were evil forces. And I think that the president was saved by the grace of God on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania. And he's in this moment for a reason. We're all here for a reason. And I think it's a miraculous thing that has taken place in our country.
Speaking about here for a reason, let's talk about you for a moment, because you and I go back to when you were running for Congress and you win the primary, you lose the general. And you're wondering, now what? And look at the now what? Look at the ... that God has done. How do you see it in terms of spiritual terms of your faith and how God has been working this kind of for such a time as this?
Well, certainly God has a plan for everyone. I believe that firmly. And you just have to trust his lead and have faith that everything will work out. And when he closes a door, it's because he's opening another. And for me, that was my congressional campaign. I aspired to be a congresswoman and had a great primary victory, as you mentioned, and unfortunately lost the general election. Or should I say fortunately, because it now led me to this opportunity. And I wouldn't have worked on the president's campaign as his spokeswoman if I was serving in Congress. And then I probably wouldn't be the White House press secretary either. So God knew what he was doing, I believe. And you just have to trust the process and trust that he's working in your life and stay grounded in your faith throughout the way.
You're 27, Gen Z. There's a spiritual revival, it seems, in this country right now, especially in the youth. We've seen this at college campuses all over the country, really. What do you attribute that to? Is there a spiritual revival going on in America, or at least wanting to begin in America?
I think so, especially amongst younger generations. You see the videos of college students worshiping on their campuses, many students getting baptized in the middle of their campus. It's a really beautiful sight. I think people are moving closer to God, and I hope that they are. I pray that they do.
Do you think President Trump is part of that in terms of ushering in this renewal, this spiritual revival, some of his policies? And do you think that kind of goes hand in hand?
I would say so. I think the president has been a great voice for young people, and he believes in young people. He loves young people, and he's leading for them to leave our country better off for future generations. His policies are uplifting all Americans, but particularly, he wants young people to live in a country where the American dream is renewed and restored for them and their families. And those traditional yet common sense, basic American values that President Trump believes in, faith and family and freedom, I think are starting to resonate with a lot of young people across the country.
Talk a little bit about the White House Faith Office. I mean, that's a big deal. There's been faith initiatives before. There's been faith offices before, but to do it in the West Wing.
Yeah.
That's huge. I mean, proximity is everything. Can you talk a little bit about the impact you believe that faith office will have on policies, not just out of the White House, but in really every cabinet agency?
Pastor Paula White and her team are doing an amazing job leading up the White House Faith Office, and the president has entrusted her for many years. They've been close friends. But now, again, as you said, the proximity to the Oval Office and the leader of the free world is a promise President Trump made on the campaign trail, and he has delivered on that promise. And we see Pastor White in the West Wing all the time, her in the hallways and just ran into her in the ladies' room the other day. She is amazing, and she's doing great work. She's brought in faith leaders, not just from the evangelical community, but from the Catholic Church, the Jewish faith, Muslim faith, all across the country have ascended here at the White House for listening sessions. And so that way they can go out to their congregations and their churches across the country and spread the word of this administration, as well as the word of God to their audiences, which is, the most powerful thing I think that she can do is spreading the administration's message and President Trump's agenda.
Yeah, there are a lot of viewers that will watch this who have seen some of the praise and worship actually coming out of the White House.
Yeah.
I mean, that she's doing that. That's got to be pretty significant, the fact that that's actually happening inside this White House, especially after the last 4 years.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. Let me ask you about the press, obviously.
Sure.
Let's start with this. I mean, look, you study this not just in college, but after that. Look, the truth of the matter is, I believe that we're in the age of what I like to call the correspondent. A correspondent by day and a pundit by night. And it's just not fair to the American people. Like, what are you exactly? And I'm just wondering, do you believe political journalism is dead in America today? How do you feel about that?
I think there are true journalists out there that still exist. They are few and far between. I think many people in the briefing room here are trying out for their next big show. And unfortunately, it seems the legacy media, the big networks in this country, promote individuals who are liberal and have a bias against this president. There's no doubt about that. But the American people aren't buying that anymore. If you look at the ratings chart, liberal outlets are dying and have been forced to restructure their newsrooms and their lineup. The Washington Post, we applaud Jeff Bezos for the changes he's made because he was no longer selling newspapers because of the liberal bias that has had a chokehold on that paper in particular. So I think the media has had to take a look in the mirror, especially after President Trump's resounding victory on November 5th. And the American public sent a very strong message to the anti-Trump media that we don't listen to you. We believe in the truth, and we know that the president's policies were better for us than the past 4 years under the Biden-Harris administration. And that's why the American people reelected this president. And it's an honor, frankly, to fight against some of those very hostile media forces every day on behalf of the president and truth.
It's an honor. You say it's an honor because why? You believe that I'll let you say why exactly, but what is that? Because you feel like truth is going to prevail coming from that podium, or what's the reason why you call it an honor, I guess is my question.
Well, it's an honor that President Trump has entrusted me and has the confidence in me to speak on his behalf and on behalf of the White House. But it is also an honor, as you said, to get the truth out there and get the message of the White House and this team out there and do it to the best of my ability.
So how do you go about, like, you're looking out into the crowd there, the press briefing room and everything. I mean, how are you kind of deciding who you're going to pick, because you pick different people. Some people you pick kind of routinely, but other people you just kind of be around the room. How does that kind of work? Is that kind of impromptu or what?
It's completely impromptu. Sometimes I'll know who will be sitting particularly in the front rows based on who I've seen throughout the day. In the morning, they come up to my office to ask questions, but I just walk in there and pick on whomever I feel compelled to choose, and we go from there.
The reviews on you, and even well, there's always going to be critics, okay, but even the friendly reviews and even people that are lukewarm on you say you're doing a really good job. What is it? Why do you believe that is the case? Why do you think that you have arrived in this moment for such a time as this? Like, what's going on? What's the DNA behind all of that?
Well, it's a lot of preparation. And, I don't just walk out there and start talking. There's a lot of studying and reading and prep that goes into the briefings in particular. And every day, even on non-briefing days, it's constant reading and keeping up with the news and talking to the president and understanding where his head is at on the top issues of the day. And it's a great team. We have an incredible team here at the White House, and many of us worked on the campaign together. So there's a bit of a battle rhythm to our movement here, and having fun as well, and keeping it all in perspective, and not getting complacent, and knowing that every day, as I said, is a new game and a new challenge, and just putting our best foot forward.
When you call on reporters, are you already kind of gaming out in your head, oh, okay, I know where they're going to go today? Do you kind of think that through?
Oftentimes the questions are predictable. If you just look at the MSDNC Chiron, you'll know where some of the reporters in that room are going to go.
Right. Let me read you something that Peter Baker from the New York Times, I'm sure one of your favorites, has said, but let me just read this real quick and I want to get your reaction. He says this about the White House press shop, quote, "It's clear they're sending a message. If we write or broadcast something they don't like, we can be punished by having access to the pool cut off. There's nothing subtle about it." You say
Having
what
trouble
to
with
that?
the live chat.
That is
Got
utter
people to
fallacy and completely ridiculous. We have expanded the pool to new voices, independent journalists, podcasters, social media content creators, while continuing to invite legacy media outlets like the one Peter Baker works for, the New York Times, are still in the briefing room, still have access to the press pool, and we are going to continue to move forward with this method. We have received thousands of applications of legitimate independent journalists across the country who were never respected by the White House Correspondents Association. And the privilege of covering the President of the United States on Air Force One or in the Oval Office should not be granted by or chosen by a few elitist journalists in Washington, D.C. That privilege belongs to the American public. And so we are ensuring that new media voices who are responding to the media habits of the American people are included in this process, and it's been phenomenally successful.
I've never quite understood, the White House Correspondents Association has made a big stink about the Associated Press being, kicked out of the pool, but there are other White House Correspondents Association members in the pool.
Not all.
They're all still in the pool.
Yeah, they're in the pool.
The reason the Associated Press has not joined us in the Oval Office or aboard Air Force One is because we are in current litigation battle with them in court, which they filed against us, which we don't believe they have any basis to do so because they still have access to the White House complex. And there are thousands of journalists who have access to the White House complex who have never received the same privilege that the Associated Press, many other legacy outlets have of going into the Oval Office every time the president does a press conference. And what gives one outlet the need or the right to do that more than another? We want equal opportunity for all of the outlets who are committed to covering this president with accuracy and transparency, and that's what we're doing.
You talked about the liberal media before you took this job. I mean, you've been talking about the liberal media for a while. Now that you've seen it up close, exactly what you thought? Worse than you thought? What do you think?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think I've been dealing with them for quite some time, so I knew what to expect coming into this role. And I think you have to really focus on the premise of their question because they will inject their own bias into that premise, and you have to go after that premise when they're asking questions.
That's interesting. So going after the bias, kind of seeing that and be able to kind of filter through that,
right,
is what you're saying. Let me ask you just a news of the day question, just one actually, and it's about judges. We were talking to Alan Dershowitz the other day. He believes that these judges that are doing all of these federal injunctions, district judges that are doing these federal injunctions, are part of the resistance movement against Trump.
Totally.
Do you see it that way?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just look at the numbers. The Trump administration, we have faced thus far in 2 months more than 30 injunctions by activist judges. The Biden administration in 3 years only had 15 injunctions. So we have doubled the amount of injunctions that the Biden administration had in 3 years in just 2 months. And why? It's because you have judges who are acting as activists behind the bench who don't like President Trump. Almost every single one of them is a registered Democrat, has been involved in Democrat campaigns or causes, have donated to Democrat candidates. Some of them have even put their anti-Trump bias on social media. They have not been shy about their hatred for this president and his policies, and they are abusing their judicial power. They are trying to overstep the authority of the executive branch and the powers given to the president in Article 2 of the Constitution. Luckily for us, and unfortunately for these judges, President Trump knows how to fight back. He fought against witch hunts throughout the entirety of his campaign. He won court cases. He fought off a weaponized justice system. And that's why he's here, to ensure this ends. And particularly with the case against the Alien Enemies Act and the president's use of that authority, which is granted to him by law. It's completely absurd. You have a judge who is trying to say the president of the United States cannot deport foreign examine terrorists, illegal immigrants from our nation's soil. If the president can't do that, the American people are in a lot of trouble. So a lot of these cases, all of them, are complete lunacy, and we're prepared to fight back in court to continue pursuing the president's agenda. The American people want the president to do exactly what he's doing. He campaigned on all of these policies and promises, and he's intent on delivering them.
I know a lot of the headlines have been about impeachment of these judges, but Article 3 goes right to the core of the issue, which is that Congress has the responsibility and through our Constitution to establish and regulate the court system. And I know some bills are going through Congress right now, the Rogue Rulings Act and things like that, where in essence, district judges may be able to basically these laws would be able to take district judges and say, no, you're not going to do federal injunctions,
Right.
or federal injunctions can only be limited to X, Y, and Z. Where does the White House stand on that type of movement?
The president has made it clear that he believes some of these judges do need to be impeached because they are overstepping their authority. And that's why we have 3 branches of government. They are co-equal branches of government for a reason. Checks and balances, that's what our founding fathers intended. And they would be rolling over in their graves if they saw some of these cases and some of these judges who are being judicial activists rather than true arbiters of the law and trying to stop the president of the United States from executing his agenda.
Yeah. As we wrap up here, going back to my Dr. Phil hat here, has there been a rough day so far, or maybe a day that you're really proud of? Like, does something stick out so far in terms of something that's gone on here at the White House for you personally as White House press secretary?
There's been so many incredible moments, certainly hard days and long days and tiring days, but every day is a good day. I don't say that to be punny. It's just the truth. We're very blessed to be here and to have this opportunity. And I'm very blessed to work with a staff whom I love, and many of us are friends, and we have a great team, and working at the pleasure of a president who is fantastic to work for and is funny and fun and is having a good time while transforming our country for the better. So we're on a great ride and we're enjoying it very much.
He's making history, but so are you, the youngest press secretary, White House press secretary in the nation's history. What message is that sending to women overall, and also women that want to get into journalism, or at least pursue not just that career, but balancing mommy life and work as well? I mean, I'm just wondering, from a historical perspective, you are a trendsetter.
Well, I think it finally puts to bed the narrative that Mark Cuban wanted to push, that the president doesn't surround himself with strong and intelligent women. That is a fallacy. Not only his appointment of me as press secretary, but our chief of staff, Susie Wiles, who's the first female chief of staff in American history. Look at the women who make up his cabinet, all serving as great role models, many of them mothers, grandmothers who are doing this job at a very high level. And it's just an honor to be here.
2 last questions. What gets you, how do I say this? Not emotional, but what really gets your goat, as they like to say? Like, what kind of riles you up, whether it be in life or on this job or something? Like, you've got passion for a lot of different things. You're America first, but is there something specifically that, like, for example, I know the whole Laken Riley stuff, and just a lot of that. Yeah. I saw the emotion in your face with that. I mean, you were, that really got to you. And I'm just curious, is it that type of stuff? Like, what is it exactly?
Yeah, I definitely believe the illegal immigration that we've seen, because I've watched as the president has met a lot of these families throughout the campaign, and the president has gotten to know them on a very personal level, has taken out a lot of time to get to know these mothers in particular who have lost their children. And now, as a mother, as myself, I cannot imagine anything like that happening, especially at the hands of someone who should have never been in our country in the first place. And it's, very upsetting, I think, to any parent to see what has happened to our country. We all want a safe and prosperous country for our children to live in. And I'm just very proud to work for a president who is determined to see that happen.
That seems to weave right into your pro-life views. You're not playing around on the life issue. You're pretty solid on that.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Last question. There's going to be a lot of articles written about you. There already have been a lot of articles written about you, and there'll be more to come. They want to define Karoline Leavitt. How does Karoline Leavitt define Karoline Leavitt?
Oh, man, that's a very interesting question.
What kind of tree would you like to be, Karoline? No.
Oh, man. Yeah. I hope people just view me as a hard worker who wants to get the job done. and a good mother and good at my job. And I think that question has yet to be seen. We've only been here 2 months, David.
Yeah.
We'll sit down again in 4 years.
Fair enough. Thanks, Caroline.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe that just came out. That's a new interview just recently, I think. I saw that. All right, we got a new Patriot Princess. About 8 minutes. Come on. Music. Oh, darn it. Jeez.
Forces which are too unconventional to be called conventional forces, which are growing in number and importance and significance. President Kennedy gave these remarks at the opening of the nuclear age, when the Pentagon was primarily organized to plan and direct large conventional operations against superpowers, not special operations short of overt declared conflict. The global demands for special operations forces then and now has confirmed President Kennedy's foresight. And now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of special operations forces. It is fitting that we are again entering an era of great power competition as we gather to affirm the importance of the special operations community. Then as now, I know special operations forces will play a vital role.
Joel 2. Blow the trumpet in Zion, sound the alarm on my holy will. Let all who live in the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming. It is close at hand, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and blackness. Like dawn spreading across the mountains, a large and mighty army comes, such as never was in ancient times, nor ever will be in ages to come. Before them fire devours, behind them a flame blazes. Before them the land is like the Garden of Eden, behind them a desert waste, nothing escapes them. They have the appearance of horses, they gallop along like cavalry. With a noise that of chariots, they leap over the mountaintops, like a crackling fire consuming stubble, like a mighty army drawn up for battle. At the sight of them, nations are in anguish. Every face turns pale. They charge like warriors. They scale the walls like soldiers. They are all march in line. They do not break rank. They do not swerve from their course. They do not jostle each other. Each marches straight ahead. They plunge through the defenses without breaking rank. They rush upon the city. They run along the walls. They climb into the houses. Like thieves, they enter through the windows. Before them, the earth shakes. The heavens tremble. The sun and moon are darkened, and the stars no longer shine. The Lord thunders at the head of his army. His forces are beyond number, and mighty is the army that obeys his command. The day of the Lord is great. It is dreadful. Who can endure it? QPost 269. Key unlocks the door of all doors. Stone, the force, strength capable of yielding power to act on info. Key plus stone equals Q.
I think I better. I think I better shut that off because there's music. I hope I wasn't too late. Did we play this before?
What is it to be Albertan? For a moment, or a week, or a lifetime? Well, that's like asking, what is it to be free? To be Chinook winds in flight over mountain peaks, or northern lights dancing till new morning dawn. To be glacial waters gracefully raging, or unbridled horses charging. To be perfect for a brief moment. Or to last longer than all of time. Sure, great places will always capture you. But Alberta, she'll set you free.
So that was interesting. Okay, this is Bon Jovi. I get confused, but I'm not sure if I played this one yet. 15 minutes.
Get the hell out of New York. How many times I gotta tell
New
you?
York FEMA camps.
New York State is still fighting for the right to set up quarantine camps. Today, the battle entered the next phase when the court heard oral arguments in the case. NTD's Ariane Pastar spoke with the lead attorney and a state senator involved in the case.
Quarantine camps in the state of New York. Governor Kathy Hochul and Attorney General Letitia James want to implement Rule 2.13. It would give the state's Department of Health the power to forcibly isolate individuals suspected of carrying a transmittable disease.
This is truly about being able to control citizens. For
New York Governor Hochul's plans for quarantine camps may be in the works again. An appeals court just dismissed a lawsuit from lawmakers and citizen groups. Their attorney, Bobby Ann Cox, disagrees with the decision. We spoke earlier today. Bobby Ann Cox, welcome to our show. Thank you so much for joining us. To begin with, can you please explain the judge's ruling in this case and your initial response here?
Yes, well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. So what happened was the 4th Department Appellate Division here in New York State ruled that my plaintiffs, Senator George Borrello, Assemblyman Chris Tague, Congressman Mike Lawler, and a citizens group called Uniting New York State didn't have standing to bring the lawsuit last year, which if you recall, we actually won the lawsuit last year at the trial court level when the court ruled in our favor and said that this regulation that Governor Hochul and her Department of Health made it was an unconstitutional regulation on multiple levels. So now this appellate court, which, of course, the governor and the Attorney General appealed to this court, they tried to overturn our decision. And yeah, the court came down and said, well, you know what? We're not even going to talk about the merits here, whether or not this regulation was unconstitutional or not. We're just going to say, hey, you know what? We don't think you had the right to bring the lawsuit in the first place last year.
And what's your assessment of that decision? What's your assessment of the reasoning here?
Yeah, it's pretty surprising, I have to say. The trial court judge last year didn't even discuss standing. It was an argument that was brought up by the Attorney General last year at the trial court, but it's so obvious that we have standing that the trial court judge didn't even discuss it in his decision. So it was very surprising, and I don't agree. My plaintiffs and I do not agree with this ruling. We do not believe that sitting New York State legislators and the people of New York State, in a citizens group, don't have standing. It doesn't make sense.
Pay attention, America, especially if you live in New York City, because they just passed legislation on 2.13. Google it. New York 2.13.
The point is, the person who's your leader is advising that the police can come into your house, your apartment, your condo at will. And if they decide to pull you out because they think that you should be quarantined, whether you're sick or not, it's their authority and their choice to be able to pull you out of your home.
Outside the courtroom this morning, Borrello, his attorney, and supporters of the original ruling doubling down on the fact that they feel the government is overstepping boundaries.
Rule 2.13 gave the Commissioner of Health the unbridled power to pick and choose which New Yorkers she could lock up. She didn't have to prove you were sick. She didn't have to prove you were exposed to a communicable disease. She didn't have to prove you were a health threat. She could issue an isolation or quarantine order at will. With the force of police, they could have removed you from your home and put you into a detention center, a facility, whatever you'd like to call it. There's no age restriction. So they could have done this to you, but they also could have done this to your child or your grandchild or your elderly parent.
This is definitely the scariest video I've ever made. It's not just for New York City, it's for the entire state of New York. We are all gonna have to run and get the fuck out of here. Let me explain what happened over the weekend. Rule 213. Anybody remember what Rule 213 was supposed to be? Or what it is now? Over a year ago, Governor Hochul tried to have something come in place called Rule 213, where the state can come remove you from your home and put you into quarantine. And I'm not talking about C-19. I'm talking about any disease, including Lyme disease, toxic shock syndrome, things that aren't even contagious.
Over a year ago, the governor of New York tried to have Rule 213 passed. This rule would make it possible for the government to come in and remove you from your home for really any reason that they deem necessary.
Yeah. Remember this one?
And put you into quarantine. This is for any disease, not just C-19, Lyme's disease, toxic shock syndrome, literally anything, things that aren't even contagious. This was actually approved to go through until a bunch of lawyers sued. A judge appealed it and said, this is not going to happen. And then the governor appealed that decision. So both sides gave their arguments. The governor saying, oh, it's not going to be as bad as you think. The other side saying what the legitimate nightmare will be if this goes through. You guys, there's no age restriction. This could literally be a newborn baby. It could be your grandparents. It could be you just giving birth. There's no due process, you have no rights, there is no court hearings, and there is no end. However long they feel like you need to stay there is how long you stay there. They can experiment with your body and give you any kind of experimental drugs or vaccines. I'm not making this up. This is literally all listed on there. You also can't even take a test to prove that you're not sick. The appeals court finally just got back with their decision over this past weekend, and they put it through. This is now active and in place in New York City right now.
Conspiracy expert Alex Jones has warned the governor that fusion centers are actually command centers for a network of concentration camps ready to be activated under martial law.
We know that they plan to use the cover story that these centers were for illegal aliens or undocumented immigrants, but that they would then build them all over the nation, prisons that are for entire families, similar to the Nazi concentration camps.
Or similar to when they interned American Japanese citizens in World War II.
Exactly.
That government plan to suspend the Constitution, declare martial law, and round up anyone deemed a national security threat, it's documented. It's called Rex 84. It was cooked up under the Reagan administration by Colonel Oliver North.
And nothing but the truth, so help you God, I do.
Today I'm directing the Director of Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services to develop media literacy tools for K through 12 in our public schools. This will teach students and even teachers to help understand how to spot conspiracy theories and misinformation, disinformation, and online hate. Start talking about what we're seeing out there. Give the teachers the tools they need to help these conversations in school. And by teaching younger New Yorkers about how to discern between digital fact and digital fiction, we can better inoculate them from hatred and the spread of it, and help prepare them for a very fast-moving and often confusing world.
June was in Las Vegas with a constitutional expert named Stuart Rhodes. From Honest Abe to Barack Obama, he says presidents have been taking away our rights whenever they want.
Executive orders over the years give the president the claimed authority to do all kinds of extraordinary things, like round up Americans and intern them without due process. More recent one, which has raised a few eyebrows, is the one issued January 11th, 2010, which is called, which establishes the Council of Governors.
The Council of Governors, 9 state governors and 1 from Puerto Rico. In case of a national emergency, they quarantine the country into 10 sectors and take control from the rest of the governors and state legislatures. If the president wanted to send in military or round up dissidents in a state, his council of cronies would rubber stamp anything. That's why they got picked.
That's the problem, is that the executive branch is now claiming the ability to use its military authority to execute the laws here at home.
Hidden power, secrets, cover-ups, corruption. You think you know the whole story? Think again. I've been governor,
5 minutes.
Navy SEAL,
5 minutes.
a fighter. I've heard things that'll blow your mind. And now I think it's time you get the whole story. Now, the secret government plan to spy on, round up, and imprison innocent Americans.
Anybody that seeks to challenge the status quo could potentially be a violent threat.
Jesse Ventura uncovers a plot to force martial law on law-abiding citizens.
Certainly the involvement of the military is something that's very concerning.
Replace the 50 states.
I found out that an agency in my state had issued a report saying that I should be considered a threat to law enforcement.
Wait, hold on. Let's back up a little. Catherine, who are you? Do you belong to a subversive group?
No.
Have you ever?
No.
You haven't belonged to anything that the government would consider subversive or like the Hells Angels?
No, I was a delegate for the state of Missouri as a supporter of Ron Paul to the RNC in 2008.
They labeled you a subversive, and all you were doing was practicing your First Amendment rights in this country, and you learned they put you on a watch list?
Yes.
Let me get this straight. She campaigns for a legitimate presidential candidate. What's more American than that? Yet she's labeled a threat? Something's not right. I thought we had a constitution that protects against that. Well, fear trumps freedom every time.
Well, it actually involves the Department of Homeland Security and these institutions that have been popping up all over the country called fusion centers. Have you heard of those?
After 9/11, Homeland Security and the Justice Department set them up in cities around the country. Command centers that gather and analyze information from government agencies, police departments, and private sources, supposedly to prevent terrorism. So, these fusion centers are, on the surface, look like a good idea, combining the federal, state, and local law enforcement, sharing their knowledge, sharing their abilities to provide safety to us in case of a terrorist-type situation.
Well, I thought so at first. Then we filed open records requests, got copies of 11 reports. Most of them were political profiling documents, and they profiled all types of ideologies and lifestyles.
I'd think this young gal was putting me on if it wasn't all on the record. These fusion centers have police powers, and centers around the country have been accused of targeting all sorts of people and groups. Ordinary folks who might be pro-life, pro-gun, part of a big church, support a third party, or just attend college. Not terrorists. When this young lady went out to find why she was being targeted, the powers that be were not polite.
I take her cussy, lock her up right now.
I am afraid of this dog. Please don't. Stop. Stop. I'm not.
Who'd sick a dog on a girl?
In Missouri, when I showed up to Governor Nixon's office to submit an open records request, I was thrown out by Highway Patrol.
I am telling you, you are to leave this office. And they fall under the Department of Homeland Security?
Yes, Department of Homeland Security.
So now that you can see the whole bigger picture, they don't have enough people on board with their plan yet. So now, as you heard the governor, Kathy, now she's trying to go into the schools to get all the kids brainwashed, to get everybody ready for this. Fusion centers are everywhere. They're unmarked buildings. I have some next to the Texas Roadhouse where I live, and they're unmarked. They'll just have a number on the building. And I have cleaners who actually clean the building, and they say that it's a fusion center. Well, they don't say that word, but they say that the CIA, FBI, and all of the other agencies all meet there and exchange information. They have been building cases on us and getting that infrastructure ready for a long time. They have profiles in every single one of us, and they are ready to pull the trigger and have a case on every one of us as being terrorists, just trying to oppose their agenda. Okay, this is a fact. If you're in New York City, your only way out of this, all of you New Yorkers need to learn how to file lawsuits and independently pro se file lawsuits. If everybody does that, this will be abolished. If you do not do that, you're going to be shoved in a quarantine camp. I can almost guarantee you that. Good luck, everybody. Please do your due diligence. 1 billion lawsuits would stop this. I guarantee it.
Okay. I can't remember if I played that. Okay.
Subscriber at worldaffairsandcontext.com, where you will find more content and new exclusive projects that I will be launching soon. April the 2nd has been announced as America's Liberation Day. April the 2nd was picked for a reason, in case you're wondering. Reportedly, it was specifically selected to avoid April Fool's Day. So on April the 2nd, a new tariff regime goes into effect.
Tariffs will go into effect. Is it truly reciprocal? Are there some countries that might get a break or some sectors that might get a break?
Well, I may give a lot of countries breaks, but it's reciprocal, but we might be even nicer than that. You know, we've been very nice to a lot of countries for a long time, but I call it Liberation Day. April 2nd is Liberation Day. But today, as you know, we did something with respect to Venezuela. You heard about that, and that will be quite important. We'll be announcing some additional tariffs over the next few days, having to do with automobiles, cars, and having also to do a little bit with lumber down the road, lumber and chips. We're going to get all those chip companies coming back. They're already coming back without even doing it. So it's been very good. But we'll be announcing some others. But for the most part, April 2nd will be a big day.
With that, let's discuss what you need to know about the new policies. The new tariffs include a 25% additional tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico, and a 10% additional tariff on imports from China. Energy resources from Canada will have a 10% tariff. There will be additional reciprocal tariffs, as I discussed in my previous video in great detail. Those have not been formally announced just yet, since the plan changed several times over the course of the past several weeks. Also, the United States will include a 25% tariff on all countries that import oil from Venezuela. Additionally, I discussed this specific policy in great detail several days ago in a separate episode here on my channel. So it is fair to be concerned because the global economy is very interconnected. Availability of goods imported from foreign countries directly depends on the trade policies of our state. When the cost of importing those products actually increases, whether it is due to supply chain disruptions or due to tariffs, U.S. companies must pay more to ship those goods to you. To stay profitable, these companies are likely to pass those costs on to consumers by raising prices. Yale University's Budget Lab reports that increasing tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico will result in an average American family paying anywhere between $1,600 to $2,000 more for the same exact products this year. America's gross domestic product, or GDP, an important economic indicator that measures the value of goods and services produced in a country, would also shrink, and it would shrink by an estimated $100 billion to $175 billion on an annual basis. The economic impact of tariffs is simple accounting. It is not driven by any political considerations, by the way. In my video yesterday, I explained that the economic slowdown and an uptick in inflation point to the possibility of stagflation, even before these tariffs go into effect. If you haven't already watched that video on stagflation, I highly recommend that you do. I think it may help you sort of understand and put these things in perspective. With these tariffs factored in, it is difficult to predict just how challenging things may become for an average US consumer as prices rise. And availability of products might actually be limited if imports are scaled back, and a decline in demand and business activity may further slow the economy. So, as you can see, there is a very strong link between all of these factors. That is definitely something to be aware of as Liberation Day is upon us. During the most recent press conference, Fed Chair Jerome Powell commented on the expected effect of tariffs. And even though Powell has lost a portion of his credibility, as he tried to assure us for years that inflation is transitory, he did say something that I would agree with. He said, "I do think with the arrival of the tariff inflation, further progress on fighting inflation may be delayed." One doesn't really need a degree in economics to see that any progress on inflation is now highly, highly questionable. Despite Liberation Day being quite celebratory in its name, recent polls show that Americans are not really excited about the US economy becoming liberated. The Conference Board, a nonpartisan research group that surveys Americans monthly on how the economy is doing, reports that consumer confidence has slipped to its lowest level since January of 2021. As confidence reading declined, consumers' expectations dropped, reaching their lowest level in 12 years, meaning even during the 2019 health crisis, consumers were far more optimistic about the US economy than they are right now. As a quick and easy example, Americans are now panicking because car prices are expected to surge once these tariffs go into effect. In the United States, you really need a car to get around, and it is viewed as a necessity, not exactly a form of luxury. According to Reuters, Cox Automotive projects the tariffs could add $3,000 to $6,000 to vehicle costs. Although the tariffs are aimed at boosting U.S. manufacturing by stirring buyers to American-made cars, automobiles built in the United States factories will still be hit with tariffs. That's because there is no such thing as an all-American car. All 10.2 million cars built in the US factories last year were built with a significant number of imported parts, mainly from Canada and Mexico. The average domestic content is conservatively estimated at only 50% and is likely closer to 40%, said a fact sheet that was published by the Trump administration. Thus, an American car that costs $40,000 to build could be hit with $5,000 in tariffs because half of its parts come from other countries. I hope that this quick video helped clarify some points related to the new trade policies that go into effect on April the 2nd. Please consider becoming a subscriber and supporting my work at World Affairs in Context.
I just found her, I think. I did her a few times, showed some of her videos. She's good. Having trouble with the live chat, so tomorrow when Trump speaks, I'll be airing it on this channel probably. Minutes.
What's up, guys? It's Benny. There's a lot of interesting news out there today, but not a lot of stop what you are doing, earth-shattering, skull-cracking, holy change your entire perspective on who and what the American government is moments, but this is certainly one of them from Congresswoman Anna Luna, who randomly on Jesse Waters' show just said, oh, by the way, there's a secret tape that proves that Lee Harvey Oswald was not the only shooter and didn't actually shoot JFK at all. And that NBC is hoarding that tape, and we need to see it. Now, Anna Luna is in charge of the declassification subcommittee that has subpoena power over the JFK assassination, and there was a press pool van that was traveling with JFK, and there isn't a lot of footage that has been released from that van. Aren't a lot of photographs from the media on that day. It's always been a curiosity. Now, we know that there's something called capture and kill in this profession, where when you need to keep a secret, you pay for exclusive rights to footage, and then you kill the story. This happened with Jeffrey Epstein. This happened with the Zapruder film, which is the only footage that we have of the actual JFK assassination. And so this might change entirely our structured understanding of who killed JFK and how. So where is this footage? Let's first listen to what the Congresswoman had to say, and then we'll examine what she may be talking about. Very interesting.
Because of these new releases, it's conclusive that the CIA was running Oswald, running him. And he also said that he doesn't think all of the documents have been released. Is that your understanding too?
Yeah, so we're actually in the process of tracking down 2 specific documents. And also, too, Jesse, I would like to actually tell the American people, it was made aware to me this evening that NBC actually has a video that's never been seen before. We're actually going to be sending a letter requesting that from NBC because it allegedly shows Oswald near the vehicle when the assassination took place, which means that he couldn't have been the shooter. So, again, we're tracking down all this information. But look, there's even a CIA document that came out that Mr. Morley pointed out that actually said that the CIA never bought the lone gunman theory. And so I think the American people had an inclination as to what we were saying, but we never had the hard evidence until now. And so it's important to note that in a free and fair society, how could you operate or have an agency operating in the shadows? And so kudos to President Trump, also Director Radcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard for pushing for this transparency. It is going to be generational changing that they've done this. And we hope to bring forward legislation to ensure that this never happens again for future generations to come.
You're saying NBC has been keeping this tape of Oswald under wraps?
Correct. In fact, Director Stone actually told us that he was showed this tape, that it was a secondary copy, and that he said that this could blow open the entire JFK investigation. What I will also tell you, though, Jesse, is he said that NBC has been very, very much so guarding this tape. And so I believe that that tape belongs to the American people. We are going to be sending a letter asking for that tape. And I would encourage everyone to ask NBC to release that tape to the public. It's important, not just for our investigations, but so the American people know the truth as to what happened with John F. Kennedy.
And I'm playing a Luna there talking about Oliver Stone, Director Stone, not a director of an agency, but Director Oliver Stone, who has created demonstrable bodies of work that shed true evidentiary light on the conspiracy around JFK's murder. Incredible movies and documentaries. I encourage you to check them out. He's been on Joe Rogan's show a bunch of times. There is no one better on this topic than Oliver Stone. And so if he is working with the committee here, that's quite a bit of a bombshell. And we really respect the dude's work. And he knows what he's talking about. Apparently, he's seen this footage. This went rightfully thermonuclear viral. Many people adding small clips and snippets like this. I'm pretty sure that this is a reference to this photo, which is one of, if not the last photos of JFK before he was shot. People have claimed that this is Oswald standing there in the door of the depository, if I remember correctly, as they passed. You can see here the vehicle, see the car, obviously the presidential limousine. You can see here Oswald, right? What looks like Oswald. They're standing in the doorway, of course, not high up in a sniper position, but they're in the doorway. Is there videos of this? There was a press pool traveling with the president. There's always been a press pool traveling with the president for the last 100 years, where members of the press are there with cameras and photography equipment, and they're there to capture what happens to the president. So does this exist? I mean, it's certainly plausible. Holy smokes, Representative Anna Paulina Luna just broke the news that NBC News has been sitting on a video of Oswald near JFK's limo at the time of the assassination. Thus, he couldn't have been in this Texas school book depository at the time. Candace saying it's so weird and lame that we're all still pretending that we don't know who murdered JFK. Like the whole timeline is feigning shock and surprise that it wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. One nation under blackmail, indeed. Candace Owens obviously alluding to the CIA, intel operations, colluding with foreign powers, killing JFK. Very much look forward, quite frankly, to there being a much more serious investigation about who did kill JFK after this. So, like, these are some of the more fascinating things that were revealed inside of these documents is how malevolent the CIA was at the time, engaging in biowarfare all the way back in the 60s. How they were engaging, of course, in like illegal drug trade and then regime change everywhere. How angry and embittered the CIA was about many of JFK's stances, like not going to war in Vietnam, like not fighting communism aggressively enough in Cuba, not providing nuclear weapons to Israel. Boy, you see like a massive constellation of people that would want to kill him. So it has been really very interesting, and capture and kill for videotapes like this is common. So NBC has never before seen video of Oswald near JFK's near JFK while he was assassinated. And that video, according to Oliver Stone, proves that he couldn't have killed JFK. So who decided that it was time to release it on at NBC after keeping it for 60 years? This is completely crazy. Everybody claiming that this is a shock. But there is also a account here who's a Pulitzer finalist and an author named Gerald Posner. And Gerald says, time for a dose of reality. This smoking gun from Rep Luna said last night, never before seen, could blow the entire JFK investigation open. She said she learned about it from Oliver Stone, and the video shows Oswald near the vehicle where JFK was. Very, very much guarding this tape. NBC is incredulous here. Small problem. It's not a secret video, and that has never before seen. It's available for anybody to watch. Okay, let's go ahead and have a look. Jimmy Darnell, the NBC affiliate cameraman who had been riding in the press camera car behind the motorcade, he and 3 other cameramen jumped out of the car after the shots and started filming for about 30 seconds after the assassination. Darnell's film shows Dallas police officer Marion Baker running into the front door of the Texas School Book Depository and past the supervisor, both of whom would encounter Oswald less than 30 seconds on the second floor. Oswald was on his way out of the building, having come down from the 6th floor of the shooting. Some conspiracy theorists think that a few seconds in the Darnell film show on the far side of the front of the Texas School Book Depository, Oswald. The figure has been dubbed the praying man because of the way that he's standing with his arms crossed. For those not in the weeds on the JFK assassination, this is not the first time that the film or the photo has been used to try and exonerate Oswald. For many years, conspiracy theorists contended that Oswald was visible in one of the pictures taken. AP photographer at the scene. Oswald, they contended, was a fuzzy figure in a white t-shirt. I've shown you that photo right here. There you go. Oliver Stone and others have now turned the Darnell film and the person standing on the left. Maybe this is Oswald. That's not clear from the fuzzy image. If it is absolutely a white man, it could be a light-skinned colored black man. 13 of Oswald's work colleagues were standing in front of the steps of the Texas School Book Depository. They were there watching the motorcade. None of them remember seeing Oswald there. Okay, so this is like the takedown, right? I hope the Oversight Committee gets the original Darnell video. Many of us would like to see the clearest possible version, phonetics of the scene that played out minutes after the assassination. So he's doing his best to like sort of cast doubt there. For those, however, who think it would be dispositive and exculpatory evidence that Oswald was hanging out of the front of School Book Depository, good luck. The story might earn a headline, but it's not breaking news. That's what he says. Let's watch the video that is attached to this tweet. There's no audio here. This is the NBC News of Daily Plaza showing the assassination aftermath, 1963. Kind of shaky video. Sort of proving how hard this would all be to do today, because you'd be able to get, like, anytime the president is anywhere, there's, 50,000 people filming in 4K. Kind of curious, right? A bunch of people running towards the grassy knoll. This is obviously something that's been out there for quite a while. And this would be the front of the Texas School Book Depository here, right? This building. You can see the people there standing on the stairway. Make this as big as possible, and you can see that it's like quite blurry. There are frames missing from the Zapruder film. I'm not here to like throw cold water on this. I'm just here to give, nor am I here to say that I'm some JFK assassination expert. I'm just saying, like, let's have all the evidence, right? We know that they've degraded footage, like of the J6 pipe bomber, that they degrade footage, they clip out, they snip out frames that they don't want you to see. So let's have it, right? Release this in its original form. NBC News has this footage. Let's go. That's all I'd ask for, because we know that they've lied to us in the past, right? I think it's still like asking the right question. Glad that Anna Paulina Luna is asking these questions. And most importantly, the only way to get to the truth is to have these conversations. So, let's do it. It's your boy Benny. Like, share, subscribe.
Okay, mini video. I'm gonna be going 2 hours, so we got 30 minutes. I got this next one's 5 minutes.
On, you've heard some of that already, but this is what jumped out at us. When we saw these numbers, we're like, what is this? In 21, you see 270,000 people, goes all the way to 2.1 million in 24. These are non-citizens that are getting Social Security numbers.
Yeah, this is a mind-blowing chart.
Yeah, just this literally blew us away. Like, we went there to find fraud, and we found this by accident. And this isn't political, by the way. My parents are immigrants. Yeah, this country's been great to us. My brother and sister all born in Spain. I'm pro-legal immigration. This is not political. This is not political. This is about America and the future of America. And there are a lot of good people in the system that pointed this in this direction. I want to honor them right now, that work in the government today, who took risks to show us these numbers and tell us what's going on. Yeah. So I want to stop for a minute. I want to honor those people today. Very good people. Very good people. I have been from D.C. to Social Security offices.
I just found
to the
this
border
one.
to track this down, and very good people have helped us along the way. I want to thank them.
Yeah.
This number, what this is when you come in the country, if you're illegal, there's a couple ways to come in. You come in through a port of entry, and you can tell them you're afraid. They'll give you an asylum case. You'll get an interview. Then you get in. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to just go to the border. Literally, this happened. I talked to Border Patrol myself. Elon was there too. I went to Laredo, and I went to Bronzeville. Elon went to Eagle Pass. You walk up to a Border Patrol officer, and you tell them you want to come in. They have a couple of choices. They could charge you with a misdemeanor or a felony under 1325, or they can make it an administrative offense, like a parking ticket, basically. They were told to do that, make it an administrative offense under the last administration. And then you go walk across the border. They do what's called a release from your own recognizance, and they give you an NTA, a notice to appear, which is to appear to judge. The wait times on judges are like average 6 years. Look at Grok, you'll see it on immigration judges. There's only 700 of them. This is 5.5 million people, okay? So what happens then? Once you're in the country and you got asylum through one of these pathways, and we map the whole thing out, you can apply for a work document. You file a 765, it's the work form. You get this form called the 766, that's the authorization, and then Social Security Administration automatically sends you in the mail your Social Security number. No interview, no ID.
This is worth just reiterating. It's not people sometimes think that under the Biden administration that he was simply asleep at the switch. He wasn't asleep. No. They weren't asleep at the switch. It was a massive, large-scale program to import as many illegals as possible, ultimately to change the entire voting map of the United States and disenfranchise the American people and make it a permanent, deep blue, one-party state from which there would be no escape.
Look, if I hadn't seen this myself, I'm not sure I'd have believed it. I went through it myself and mapped it, and Elon is right. This is true. The defaults in the system from Social Security to all of the benefit programs have been set to max inclusion, max pay for these people, and minimum collection. That's what's happening. We found 1.3 million of them already on Medicaid, as an example. We've gone through on every benefit program we went through, we found groups from this particular group of people, this 5.5 million people in those benefit programs. And then what was really, really disturbing us was why. We're asking ourselves why. Right. And so we actually just took a sample and looked at voter registration records. And we found people here registered to vote in this population, yes.
And who did vote.
And we found some by sampling that actually did vote. And we have referred them to prosecution at the Homeland Security Investigation Service.
Yeah.
Already, that is already happening.
So, another interesting news there. Okay, do a couple more. Got to rest up for tomorrow with the speech and everything.
Donald Trump.
Megyn Kelly went on a New York Times podcast. They've got a podcast over there at the New York Times. I'm sure they're faking their numbers on that too. And you can see the host really wants to get her on something with Trump. And Megyn just, once again, this is a Megyn Kelly masterclass.
I just want to understand something clearly. Donald Trump was found liable for sexual abuse in a civil court. He's been accused by many women. You don't believe any of that? I think the most serious thing I've heard about him has been the E. Jean Carroll allegation that he sexually assaulted her in a Bergdorf dressing room. And I don't believe one word of that. There's not many, one word. There are other women who have said. I know, I've interviewed some of them. But look, the things I heard were included things like he got handsy on an airplane. Now, I don't know whether that happened or it didn't, but do I find that a deal breaker for a possible politician? Not really. At least I reported on their stories and did them the courtesy of bringing them to air in front of millions of people and let the audience make up its mind. My problem is more with these Democrats who will bury these allegations against their candidates or their candidate spouses and then play holier than thou when they're looking at Donald Trump. You have to understand, like, if you haven't sold your soul, you have to be willing to criticize the people, even that you admire, on your, quote, side. And my owning my bias by going out there on stage with Donald Trump and saying, I'm voting for him and you should too, is a bonus when it comes to my credibility. Now, everybody has zero doubt about where I stand, and they can filter everything I say through the appropriate lens. What typically happens in journalism is they say they have no bias, and then they just work it out in the printed word or on their shows without owning it. But the audience knows it, and it creates a distrust and a divide. When it comes to Trump and me, no, my own personal opinion is most of the allegations against him are much more complicated than the mainstream media would have you believe. And I don't think Donald Trump is a rapist or a sexual assaulter. I do think he's taken inappropriate liberties with women and gotten handsy with them in a way he's owned himself. Okay, years ago when he was a celebrity, and it is what it is. That's the past. But it's just about so much more than that. We are talking about how many people dying at the southern border because of the invasion that we've suffered under Joe Biden. We're talking about Laken Riley, whose killer was let in under Biden. We put him on a taxpayer flight down to Georgia where he murdered her. I don't give a about Trump getting handsy with somebody 20 years ago. I want someone who will close the border, which he has. I want someone who will keep boys out of my daughter's sports, which he has. I want someone who will stand up to the insane DEI policies so that white kids will stop hearing in school that they're born with some original sin from which they cannot recover, which he has.
That's right, Megyn. And that's why we're winning. And it's like, lady, whoever you are, interviewer, it doesn't even matter. Like, you're just sitting in a chair for the New York Times and you're an interchangeable part. But lady, with all your good liberal values, and I'm sure you read the New York Times with your coffee on the Upper East over the weekend and you sit there with light jazz music playing in the background, it's going to be Donald Trump that saves your ability to do that. Because liberals need conservatives to hold the door to stop all the bad guys from coming in. So no one cares about the 20-year-old scandals already or the rest of it. So that's just a great job.
Okay, that was a so-so interview. Yeah, this will be the last one, about 5 minutes. Oh, wait. I think 10 minutes.
"61-year-old woman driving Tesla boxed in by male driver, beaten while sitting in her car." Numerous leftists have been caught keying Tesla cars and Cybertrucks amid nonstop media attacks against Elon Musk. However, some of the attacks against Tesla owners have become violent. A 61-year-old woman driving a Tesla was boxed in by a male driver and beaten by him while she was sitting in her car. The violent attack took place in Flagstaff, Arizona last week. The victim, who wished to remain anonymous and was referred to as Susan, told Arizona Family that she was appalled when a motorist chased her, boxed her in, and began beating her through an open car window.
Yeah, both of these victims have had their Teslas for years, long before Elon Musk ever got into politics. But that's not stopping people from coming after them. One woman we spoke to was just driving down the road when all of a sudden an angry driver cut her off, got out of the vehicle, and assaulted her. And the whole thing was caught on camera.
And now Tesla owners under attack in Arizona.
I'm just appalled. I didn't buy my car for a political statement. I bought my car because it's really fun to drive, and my politics have nothing to do with that. And I'm ashamed of our society and what they're doing.
This is video of a Tesla attack in Flagstaff last week. It shows a green car pulling up next to a Tesla on busy Route 66, then swerving in front to box the vehicle in. The driver then walks over to the 61-year-old woman in the Tesla and reportedly starts hitting her while she's behind the wheel.
I started to say, "You cut me off. What's your problem?" But I don't know how much of that got out. And he started to punch me with a closed fist.
At one point, the victim, who wants to hide her identity, says she bit the man's hand. Moments later, the passenger of the green car appears to walk over and pull the attacker away. They finally get back in their car and drive off. The incident is among the latest attacks on Arizona Tesla drivers being targeted because of the car they drive. We also spoke to a woman who told us she left a grocery store in Flagstaff recently and found a note on her car that said, "When she's a Nazi and a loser." A few weeks later, she received a threatening text calling her a racist POS.
It's wrong, it's deplorable, and I think they're just hurting people. They're not really hurting a company or Tesla.
Now, the man accused of assaulting that woman in her Tesla has been cited and is scheduled to appear in court on Monday.
Now let's call it for what it is: domestic terrorism. The race riots of 2020, BLM, Antifa domestic terrorists set the precedent for political violence in the United States of America. These people don't want peace. They want war. They want death. They want you eradicated. And this is becoming far too frequent. Deranged Florida woman charged with felony after vandalizing Tesla, causing nearly $3,000 in damage in mall parking garage. Owner says he was absolutely targeted for driving Tesla. Another Tesla terrorist has been caught by authorities in Florida and is facing a felony criminal mischief charge for using a large wad of gum to damage a Tesla's door handle at the Aventura Mall near Miami, Florida. The March 22nd incident, captured by the car's cameras, caused nearly $3,000 in damage to the door mechanism. Yamaris Marrero was reportedly slapped with felony charges and a hate crime enhancement. However, the charges were reduced in bond court on Friday, and she is charged with a third-degree felony instead of her original second-degree felony. The Tesla driver who was victimized by this psycho says he believes he was absolutely targeted for driving a Tesla.
On March 22nd, police say this is also Marrero spreading gum on a Tesla and spitting at it. Look at it right there. This all happened in the Aventura Mall's parking garage.
You think you were definitely targeted because of Elon Musk?
Absolutely. Without a doubt. Again, there was no personal interaction.
The victim, who didn't want to show his face, says he was targeted.
Unfortunately, a divide in our country where certain views that are not accepted by a subset.
So Local 10 airs the story Tuesday and Wednesday, and guess where Marrero was spotted on Thursday, say police? The food court at the Aventura Mall. An alert security guard gave cops the tip they needed.
Marrero?
The bubble burst. And Marrero now standing before a judge.
Yeah, supposed to stay away from this individual at least 500 feet away at all times.
She's ordered no contact with the victim. Tesla trouble lands this woman in jail.
You see, domestic terrorists use tactics of fear, intimidation, and violence. What they're doing are targeting Tesla owners in order to get to Elon Musk. It's an attack on America. It's an attack on Americans. Cancer, acne rosacea, multiple sclerosis, and rheumatoid arthritis are 4 different diseases in 4 different areas of medicine. What if they can all be treated with parasite medication, and that turns out for these diseases to be true? What if I told you that if you had a pet or ate sushi, you are more likely to have parasites? This means that a lot of our ailments that we experience every day are
1
caused
minute.
not by environmental issues, but by parasites as well. This is something Big Pharma does not want you to know about. I know many of us check off many of these boxes. This is why Purge is offering.
I think I better stop that one. I'll play one more video. That wasn't very. I'll end it with this one here. It's 8 minutes.
This guy, that's like the second time that's happened.
This all
about the video about the return of the Marines and the one video got a bunch of views, but people asked 100 questions. So here's what I'm gonna tell you. Okay, I have an International Bar Association membership, which makes me an international lawyer. Technically, it's called a barrister with a Bachelor of Laws through the University of London. Okay, in basically common law, right? Because when we say common law and stuff like that, you don't realize that stuff's like real. Like you have to go get the credentials so you can be recognized. So, and I spend the last 5 years reading almost 500 books and building a whole international organization, not to know what I'm saying, when I'm saying it, why I'm saying it. So to have law in the nation, you have to have a court. International law is human rights law and arbitration. That court is the Guantanamo Bay Court of Justice, because it's the International Court of Justice out of The Hague. Okay? As I said before, when I said the War of 1812, the Marines are back, and that one got a bunch of views. Marines are back because the Redcoats that invaded in 1812 was not the Marines. According to the Supreme Court of the United States ruling in 1930, they classified them and named that cartel organization the Union of the United States. That Union of the United States consisted of the House of Representatives or members, senators, rogue British officers, naval officers, okay, and financial cartels or financial organizations all together. All right, that was called the Union of the United States. When they burnt the White House down, they destroyed all the land records and all the land patents. When they tried to invade Baltimore, they were trying to get to the birth records at the Basilica. They never got in because they were held at Fort McHenry, where the Star Spangled Banner was written. And then they decided to appoint infiltrators into our system, and they left. And that's why we assumed that we won the War of 1812. We didn't win the War of 1812. They left operators, agents. Those agents have subsequently become the financial organizations or the power organizations subsequently called now the federal government, or key parts of the federal government, the elite or their operators. Lincoln called them agents. Okay, basically an insurgency. It's been here since 1812. All right. So the International Court of Justice prosecutes for crimes against humanity. But you got to have the International Court of Justice in the North American territory before you can return law. That's how it works. You got to have the court. That court is ran by the United States Marine Corps. That's why it's at Guantanamo Bay. All right. Trump signed an executive order saying that it was against cartels. Everybody assumes it is the drug cartels. Everybody assumes it's drug cartels. It's not the drug cartels, not just the drug cartels, okay, which they'll probably be given a chance to redeem themselves. All right. But here's what it is. If someone blows the whistle or exercises their rights, and you put together, let's say, 19 people in an organization, when one of the workmen inside that organization blew the whistle on you, and you tortured them, and you violated all their rights, and you ignored them, and you did whatever you wanted, you, as an organization, all 19 people right here, will be classified as an individual organized cartel that is operating outside of treaties and the International Court of Human Rights and the Geneva Convention. If you did it to somebody who is disabled, that is a crime against the human species. Your organization, your 19 people, because there's 19 people that probably should watch this, that are all together as that organized crime cartel inside as public officers and agents inside the government or inside the public organization, that's the cartel. And all 19 will be prosecuted as one individual. And all 19, or they're affiliated, will be treated all the same under the International Court of Justice and Justice in Guantanamo Bay. And they're going to need veteran prosecutors or International Bar Association members.
I don't
And if it was reported to you,
this is this new one,
and you were law enforcement and you ignored it and tried to investigate the individual that reported it, or because it came to your notice and you did nothing as law enforcement, you are part of that organized cartel. Because your job is fraud, waste, and abuse, and you failed to do that. So you're now a member. That's how it works. So by having the power to issue declaratory judgments as one group of people, more than one, as a organized operation, syndicate, cartel, every person who participates in gang piles on an individual to destroy their defame them, destroy them, publicly humiliate them, you are part of a cartel. So if like you have an ex-wife who wants to steal everything and then they get with their attorneys who want to help them and they destroy you, and then they collude with the judge and the court officers and all of them, that is a syndicated, adjoined individual cartel that will all be treated the same. That's why you have a court of justice. That's what that actually means. And people are going to be prosecuted all over the place. It's not just the politicians. There are many cartels. There are numerous cartels. And when they adjoin to each other to destroy someone's reputation or steal everything, that's a cartel. And they get judges involved, or they get law enforcement involved, or the law enforcement refuses to do a proper investigation on fraud, waste, and abuse, they're now a member. And they will all be treated as one individual. And they will have to present their representative for all of them as one united, individual, organized cartel. I hope that clarified it. God bless.
Okay, he does a good job on his intel. I wasn't sure if that should have been a new one, I believe. So that's going to end it for today. At least now I know I got the orange channel. So I hope I won't touch no problems with this for tomorrow. Speech and everything, and if anything develops. Like I said, everybody stand by, and this, out of all my channels, I got 4 or 5 of them, so God bless everybody. Love you all. Ever please hit like and subscribe, and Stay safe, stay strong, keep the faith. And anything develops, I'll be on.